Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Political Fixer Live. I'm Shawna Presley Vercher, the Political Fixer, and we have quite the show for you. So much going on, so much to break down, and there's some twists and turns along the way. I am back fresh from summer hiatus, and I am excited to dive in. Okay, let's talk about what we can expect in tonight's action packed show. Well, if you're new to Political Fixer Live, we cover some of the top headlines and we dig in a little bit deeper to some of the underreported stories. And then there's the real star of this hour, which is all of you. We welcome all of your questions and comments and interactions and engagements. And we have our Political Fixer team. We have Sarah and Eddie and J Robot on standby, as well as others, to help you navigate through all of these stories. So let's talk about which topics we're going to cover because as bad as things are, and don't get me wrong, they are terrible, there's actually signs of weakness in this administration. So, we're going to cover a few of them. We're going to show you what is happening, give you some rays of hope, and also, my favorite, some calls to action if you want to get more involved in these subjects. But also, I got to tell you, I came back after a couple of weeks of being off the air, and when we started going down the rabbit hole on some of these stories, they do not disappoint. So let me tell you our top three stories we're going to cover tonight, in addition to your viewer and audience questions and comments. First of all, move over Musk, because there is a new feud and possibly a new breakup. And this one has global implications. So we're going to talk about that breakup. Is it really a breakup? Are they just having a riff? Someone new is having trouble with this administration, and we're seeing signs of fracture. We're going to talk about that. We also are going to discuss the horrific escalation of this immigration issue. This was supposedly about rounding up criminals and deporting them. Many of us knew that was never the case. But here's the thing that might surprise you. I'm actually going to help this administration catch one of those immigrant criminals that they've been after. So you're going to want to stick around for that one. And then, of course, we have a lot of attention that is being paid to the Epstein case. And there's a reason for that. Now, don't worry if you've got little ears listening, especially over dinner or on a drive. We are going to keep this very PG, but we are going to talk about not only why this Epstein case matters, why it's not going away anytime soon, what we can do to keep it going. And we're going to talk about the star of that case. And no, I don't mean just like Maxwell, and I don't mean Epstein. There's someone else that you should pay close attention to, because they are about to get a lot more important in the news coverage. Okay, all of that plus your comments and questions. And I want to start off by saying hello to our Political Fixer family. We so appreciate your regular support, not just by sending likes and all that, but all you do to share and promote this content and to help everyone else who's on the chat with us to make sure that they understand and can help navigate all of this stuff. Okay, let's dive in. First of all, first things first, I want to apologize in advance if I suddenly start to sneeze or cough or grab some water. I am getting over a summer cold. So luckily I've gotten past the froggy Rebecca Howell phase of my situation. Any of you Cheers fans are going to get that. But just in case, wanted to apologize up front. Still a little froggy, but very excited to be back. All right, let's dive into our top story, our first story. Now we're going to cover the possible first card to fall in this administration, which is the Epstein case a chink in their armor? We're going to talk about that. Then we're going to cover the new possible bromance breakup. And then we're going to talk about the surprise twist with this immigration situation. Also, definitely want to make sure that all of you get a chance to ask questions. Before we get into the stories at hand, I want to go into Paris's real review question. Are we able to stop the decline of our country? I think there's no short answer to that, Paris, but I will say that I am starting to see more glimmers of hope. And part of that is what I see as this administration starting to combust just a bit, and we'll talk about that. But I'm also seeing people get more organized and not fall for the distractions as easily. I'm starting to see more and more people saying they want to step up and either run for office or help organize in different ways. Seeing a lot more local outreach, education, training, coalition building. So it's going to take a substantial amount of work. There are many days where there are some there's just so many negative headlines. I have to set the phone or the computer down and walk away. It's not gonna be easy, but I wouldn't be sitting here in this chair talking to all of you if I didn't feel like better days were ahead. Dark times? Absolutely, but that's why we're here together. Great question, though. Um, and I wanna say hi to so many of our regular political fixer family. I see Professor Liberty Esquire is here. I see Blue Dots here, so many people. So let's dive into the story, but keep taking questions here. And again, thank you to my political fixer team. I have as I've been on hiatus. Okay, I've been in politics for many, many years. And one thing that I've learned is that you can never predict what the one story is that's going to grab the public's attention and just not let go. You can try to manufacture moments, but it never ceases to surprise me what the one thing is, that one domino that toppled that really caused everything else to fall. I'll give you a couple of quick examples. Who would have thought, if any of you remember the Mitt Romney campaign for president, that his comment about 47% of Americans, something to do with, don't want to work or what have you, that 47% comment that grabbed hold and it penetrated past news cycles into everyday people. And people started thinking, hey, maybe the rich billionaire who comes from a legacy family of being governor is elitist, right? But it was that one comment that turned the tide. Going back even further, Sarah Palin. I don't know how many of you remember her from being the running mate of John McCain against President Obama. He was not yet president. She said a number of pretty outrageous things. Yet, when she implied that she could see Russia from her house, it lived on in Saturday Night Live infamy. You never know what the one thing is that's going to grab people's attention, right? Joe Eclectic remembers the SNL spoofs, right? Like that was the thing that grabbed it. It was, I could see Russia from my house. Well, I think right now we are witnessing one of those moments, one of those public moments that people are just not willing to let go of. And that is the Epstein case. Is this the domino that will start to erode trust and have the media start to cover this administration differently? But more important than that, have the public at large start to look at them differently. Now, I want to be really clear about something here. This Epstein case matters for a number of different reasons. And again, keeping this PG, there were hundreds of victims. We cannot let crimes like this go not only not prosecuted, but we don't even know the names of the perpetrators of all these crimes. We're going to be talking about the crimes themselves and giving them the weight and the space that they deserve in another time. And I'll definitely keep you all posted if you're interested in having that conversation and being a part of it. Tonight, specifically, I want to talk about the political implications. Again, not saying the other stuff isn't actually more important, but for the focus of tonight, I want to talk about the political implications and what to look at and a couple of surprising things. Now, if you are not familiar with this, I'm going to give you a 2-minute rundown on the situation with Epstein. So, very high level. And again, don't worry about little ears. So Epstein was actually convicted and went to prison. He went once before in Florida because, of course, it always happens in Florida, doesn't it? So in 2008 in Florida, there was an accusation of trafficking and abuse of over 30 young girls. And behind the scenes, Epstein revealed a sweetheart deal where he only served 13 months and not even 13 months in prison. It was a work release program where he could be gone 6 days a week, up to 13 hours a day. So he really didn't serve in prison. And that kind of went under the radar for most people. That was back in 2008. That was a state case at the time, state with federal oversight. Anyway, then in 2018, 10 years later, and I want to name her, Miami Herald writer and journalist Julie K. Brown published a story. She basically wrote an expose uncovering this sweetheart deal, the depths of the crimes that we knew about at the time that she was able to uncover. And so people started paying attention to this case nationwide. This was when most of the country learned about Epstein and what was going on. That was in 2018. And again, forgive this cold. So in July of 2019, Epstein was rearrested on federal charges with over 250 victims allegedly. A month later, in August, Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell and he, of course, perished. Again, trying to keep this appropriate. Keep going. He had a long-time business associate and it turned out accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. And she was tried. That trial started in 2020, and she was convicted in 2022 to a 20-year prison sentence, which she is still serving currently. Okay, so we have hundreds of victims. We have years worth of investigations that happened between multiple different departments and agencies at all kinds of different levels. But what we don't have are the people who actually committed these awful crimes. Their names were never released, the so called client list. And that brings us to this administration and their vow to release the client list. Now, let's just do a quick run through of what they have promised to date with the client list. And again, forgive my tissues. Okay, so there's been tons of speculation as to who appears on that list. There's been celebrities, billionaires, politicians, CEOs. All these people have been rumored to be on the list. There's been a number of photos of famous people with Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein, but nothing confirmed, right? So 47 used this conspiracy theory cloud to his advantage. And in 2016, when he was running against Hillary Clinton, he stated that Bill Clinton was not only on this Epstein client list, but that the Clintons were the ones, he later said that the Clintons were the ones that had Epstein done in. He then, in 2024, when he was running again, he said that he would release the Epstein client list. Then, after he was elected, his US attorney, Pam Bondi, said that the files were on her desk and that she would release the client list and unseal the records imminently. Then some chatter happened. And they said, "Not so fast. We're actually not going to release them." And they put out a memo from the Justice Department. And I can't believe that they thought this would work. The memo said, and this is a quote, that the Department of Justice feels like, quote, public disclosure would not be appropriate. And that sent fury among people across the aisles that were waiting for these files to be released and for some sort of justice to come to light finally after decades. Then it got even weirder. Then 47 was like, "Oh, it's not that we're not releasing it. It doesn't exist. The client list doesn't exist." Okay, so two people have been convicted. One is still in prison and no one knows who committed these crimes. A little bit not believable, right? Okay, and then it got even weirder, and he said, yes, it might exist, but if it does exist, then it was created by Comey, Obama, and Biden, that they made up what was on the list. Whew. Okay. So if you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you. All right, we're going to dive more into this story, but I see you guys lighting up. We're already at over 12,000 comments. I see that Puck is on here, like generating all kinds of fun emojis and things that I love this. All right, so we've got Square Foot Gardening for You saying, I love that MAGA are burning red hats. We are going to talk so much more about that, Square Foot Gardening, and I'm happy to see you after our hiatus. We've got people saying, that they should definitely release the list, let justice come to light. I see Professor Liberty Esquire saying the blackmail that has likely shaped our society as a result of this is mind boggling. We have no idea of the implications of something like this. Karen Shaw says, I bet you anything that Epstein's girlfriend will be pardoned just to keep her quiet. Maybe, but if I'm her, I don't feel safe anywhere. Again, allegedly, some of the most powerful people in the universe are on this list. I don't know how safe I would feel getting into my car, sleeping in a bed that's not guarded, etc., etc. Diane Zoe is asking, didn't Giselle say that she wants to talk to Congress about what she knows? There's a lot of rumors flying, and some of it is that she never received a plea deal. And I'm not an attorney. I just want to be very clear, but that she's willing to come forward and name some names. Those are rumors at this point. Arline, I agree that she's in danger, girls, as they say. Okay, so let's talk about what this has done to MAGA. Again, coming back to the political consequences of this. And then we're going to get a little bit deeper on, again, one of our co starring cast members here. So, just to give you some perspective on how divided MAGA is, some of you are already saying you've seen like TikToks and social media posts, but let me give you some context here. Tens of thousands of comments, not just on all social media outlets, but specifically on Truth Social, of MAGA loyalists with outrage, confusion, shock, demanding that the list be released, and that some already calling for Bondi to step down, the U.S. attorney, and we'll get to her in just a moment. Figures that are very prominent, like Tucker Carlson, Laura Loomer, Steve Bannon, they are calling for more transparency and saying this is completely bungled. Megyn Kelly, in particular, said that Pam Bondi is either lazy or incompetent. This has not slowed down. This is a divisive thing. We're going to parse that in just a second, but let me give you a little bit more context here. Here in Tampa Bay, there was a conference for one of the more conservative organizations, Turning Point USA. From the stage this past weekend, right wing activist Charlie Kirk and the notorious Steve Bannon stood on stage together and they asked the audience one question, and this can be confirmed on video. And this is a quote. They said, "Raise your hand if the Epstein thing is very important to you." The entire crowd immediately raised their hands, some of them putting two hands up for emphasis. And this is a conservative conference this last weekend, right? So, oh, I love this. So Professor Liberty Esquire said, I saw a comment to 47, you didn't make MAGA, MAGA made you. Yes, absolutely. And even his former buddy, Elon Musk, has piled on saying, how can people be expected to have faith in him if he won't release the Epstein files? The media has not let up on this. Okay. So let's take a couple of different tacks here. All right. I'm going to not talk too much about how much I believe 47 is all over those files, all over them. I'm just going to leave that. Why? Because it almost doesn't matter for the purposes of this moment. Bear with me here. It matters. It absolutely matters if we have a predator in the White House. I know some of us are already aware, but just go with me for a second here. Let's just assume, for sake of discussion, that he's not. He's still in political trouble. Let me explain why and how we can leverage this moment to sow more division and hopefully wake some people up from the MAGA cult. Then I also want to talk about, again, one of the co starring players. Let's start with her. Let's start with Pam Bondi. Who is Pam Bondi and why should you care? At a high level, the reason I want to spend 2 minutes on Pam Bondi is because, at the very least, I think she's about to be the person that takes the fall for this in the short term. She's someone easy to get rid of, and we want her gone. Let me give you just a little bit of her pedigree, so to speak. With all of the horrors going on with this administration from day one, you may have missed that she came in under a dark cloud. Pam Bondi had her Senate confirmation hearing. I believe that was in February, but please correct me if I'm wrong on that. After her Senate confirmation hearing, it was discovered that she was actually a lobbyist for the country of Qatar. Now, if that name sounds vaguely familiar to you, it would be Qatar, as in wanted to give him a several $100 million new Air Force One Qatar. I'm sure that is a complete coincidence. So she has a lobbying relationship with them. Not just, oh, I once did a project for them. Qatar was paying her over $100,000 a month. $100,000 a month for that relationship, which she did not fully disclose. Now, maybe she meant to, maybe it was misinterpreted, maybe there was nothing wrong. But here's the thing. Normally, an ethics committee would look into that. Is it inappropriate? Are there certain things she should not weigh in on? Is there a conflict of interest? Did she break the law by not being clearer in her disclosures? And that ethics office for this particular thing is known as the Foreign Agents Registration Act, or FARA. But on her very first day on the job, Pam Bondi wrote a memo. Day one, literally day one. We say day one as like a phrase, but I mean literally on her first day as becoming U.S. Attorney, Pam Bondi wrote a memo saying basically ignore FARA unless it has to do with a case of traditional espionage. So I didn't do anything wrong, but let me completely make it impossible for FARA to look into anything, run an ethics investigation, dig any deeper, or punish me if I did. If you're still not convinced on whether or not Pam Bondi is someone that we can trust, let me go a little bit into her early years just for fun. We'll just spend a couple of minutes on his. Why do I know about Pam Bondi? I actually know more about Pam Bondi than I can publicly disclose because she's actually from Tampa Bay, Florida, and I know way too many people who know way too much about her. But we're going to keep it again PG right now. Let me go through some of the highlights of her lovely days as the state attorney in Florida, because of course she came from Florida. In 2013 to 2016, she was actually investigating 47. Now, this was before he became president. She was looking into 22 consumer complaints about Trump University. And there was a multi-state lawsuit, and she was considering whether or not Florida was going to join in on a multi-state lawsuit. She decided not to look into that. And completely coincidentally, I'm sure, it was right after 47 donated $25,000 to her PAC. A complete coincidence, again, that I'm sure. She also found out about assistant attorneys in the state of Florida investigating fraud from a lender processing service that's now known as Black Knight. And when she found out that they were investigating fraud, otherwise known as doing their jobs, she forced them to resign. And again, completely coincidentally, she received thousands and thousands of dollars of political contributions from that lender processing company that was under investigation for fraud. But if you're still wondering if Pam Bondi is a good person, she once persuaded Rick Scott, the guy that was governor, then became Lex Luthor, then Voldemort, then became a US senator, that guy, she persuaded him to postpone the execution of an inmate so that she could attend a campaign fundraiser. Yeah, so that's Pam Bondi. So, tying it all together, we have some lovely characters here that we're dealing with. What can we take away from this? I want you to look at it from two different angles. On the one hand, it is hitting him and dividing his base. And this is an easy thing to keep alive in the media. This is different than tariffs, which can be very confusing and change all the time. It's different than understanding the future budgets of rural hospitals and what might be cut and what might not be cut. This has everything that the media loves. It's a sex scandal. It has conspiracy theories. There's a mysterious death. There's witnesses coming out everywhere. There's rumors about celebrities and powerful people. This is something that people understand and that the media loves to talk about. So let's leverage that to our advantage to show that after thousands and thousands and thousands of lies, he's a liar. And ask the very simple question: why are you protecting the criminals on this list? What is to be gained? Again, you don't have to worry about if he's on the list or not. That's another conversation for another time. If you're trying to reach MAGA and penetrate the cult, why protect the people on this list? It's very simple. Keep in mind, they ran an entire campaign on protecting women and girls. I disagree with the premise that young trans girls that want to play sports were ever a danger to anyone, but just they ran a campaign on protecting women and girls. Hold them to it. Why aren't they protecting the women and girls who were victimized by these people? So that's point one. This is a very easy thing to play, whereas some things are complicated or confusing or honestly boring. This one's easy. So let's run with the easy one. And it's working. The second thing that I want to bring up as far as a point is that we might have people who their support wavers from him. All right. Regular people. I'm not talking about the people that make their money cozying up to him. They're about to all fall in line. We're already starting to see it. I'm talking about regular people that believe that this stuff is real, that they believe they're trying to help the country, however misguided and misinformed that might be. They might turn against him altogether. They might just not vote next time. Every single one of them counts. They might get really mad at being lied to and come help do some of the heavy work that's in front of us in repairing this country. That's our best case scenario. But even our worst case scenario is we get rid of Bondi. Every single person in this administration that we lose, I get it. It feels like a little bit like the head off of a hydra, but it causes disruption. It causes chaos. It weakens them. They'd have to find someone else. And also, do you want Pam Bondi rising to power? Right? We don't. I just gave you a lot of reasons. Trust me, there are many more. So, what can you do about it? First of all, don't assume people are familiar with this story. Epstein was first convicted in 2008. And I hate to break it to all of you because this one hurt me when I did the math. That is 17 years ago. Okay, so with all of this going on, we want to make sure that people are familiar with the story. Take them through how bad of a guy this was when it's appropriate and bring them up to speed. Don't assume that they know. That's one thing that you could do is create content or share information so people are caught up to what's going on. Because to a lot of younger people, then Epstein doesn't mean as much, right? Okay. Secondly, very easy talking point. Why are we allowing powerful men to do whatever they want to women and girls? Why are we not holding them accountable? That is something that most people can agree with. It's a universal thing. A lot of us feel like the rich and powerful get away with everything. And so, even though this is one very specific story and it's a salacious story, at the heart of it is a very unifying message. Why are we letting these bad guys get away with everything just because they have money and power? Shouldn't they be held accountable too? And when you're talking to most regular people, that is a good conversation jumping off point. And I would say if you're trying to convert someone into having a conversation, considering the alternative of not supporting him in a diehard, blindfolded way, then ignore the conspiracy theories. Don't rise to the bait of how, again, I believe, and we have reasons and documents to say that he's all over, his fingerprints are all over this. Resist that temptation if your desire is to bring people out of the cult and instead focus on this very simple question: if you are trying to do the right thing, what are you hiding? Why are you covering this up? What is to be gained by hiding this client list? Square Foot Gardening for You says that he called himself the protector of women, which is even creepier now. Carla Dunn says apparently they've been doing it for centuries. No BS says tired of the masculine egoic society. Preach it, sister suffragette. Um, I mean, I think all of us are really disgusted at just watching people get away with things, right? I mean, that's why we I want to also bring up that Gigi, the reluctant diva, good to see you tonight. Gigi says, "What will they actually start to question if he's not on the list? Why wouldn't he want to release it?" I think, Gigi, some of them will. I think, listen, there's no magic spell that we can break here. People are going to come into the light in their own time and their own time frame. But we've talked before about how I firmly believe that MAGA is a cult. We're going to be talking a lot more about that as we get into deeper how we can actually make a difference in healing this nation. And when you talk about cults and you start to study that, one of the big common themes of them is that the people have to leave willingly. And so it takes the most random things sometimes to get them thinking differently, to snap something in their cognitive wiring. Um, so let's see. We've got Karen, we've got her comment in Paris. Okay. All right. Duckling Mom says, why are we talking about Epstein when people are being kidnapped by ICE tabloid distraction? Okay, Duckling Mom, I want to address that. So we are going to be talking about ICE later in the show, but I actually don't think the Epstein thing is a distraction. I actually think the idea that you can kidnap and abuse hundreds and hundreds of girls and not be held accountable is a huge problem. And it's linked to all of what we're seeing. It's about taking by force, being awful to people because you can, no accountability to the law or decency or ethics or anything. I actually think this is an important story because we can't forget the crimes behind the story. And then if you want to go deeper, we can't fix anything as long as he has a stranglehold over the electorate like he does. Whatever you want to call it, a following, a deep belief, a cult, whatever, a devout following of the party, however you want to label it, we have to start parsing some of those people off. And sometimes we don't get to choose the topic at hand that people are interested in, right? Hoosier Mama says, does the list even physically exist or was it buried? It's possible that there are some evidence pieces that have been lost throughout the years. But this was a case that was tried again, not once, not twice, but three times. And so there are documents that are available. They're available at the investigative level, they're available at the state level, they're available at the federal level. Are they complete? No, but zero of them have seen the light. Um, so the fever must break for us to get through to them. Absolutely. And yeah, buried with Ivana, I got you, Hoosier Mama. Okay, so we're gonna pivot from this, but I do think it's an important story. Is it also salacious? Is it tabloid gossip? Yes, that's probably why the media is staying on it for more than 5 minutes, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. They are not talking about any of the 5,000 other huge topics that are going on right now. Because if we were going with, there are so many important life and death stories that are happening right now. But sometimes you have to play the hand that you're dealt. And so if you are someone that's like, how can I get through to some of the MAGA following and convince them to stop just believing every word he says? This is something. All right. And Angie is reinforcing this, saying some of his supporters are upset about this and they are currently arguing. Okay, I'm getting a hello from a slightly less occupied LA. Great segue. Let's see. Hold on. I just want to make sure I get some questions here. Novia, didn't a federal court seal the list? There are a number of documents that have been sealed. Yes, but there's also documentation that could be released, and the federal government has the power to do just that. So we'll see what happens. All right, we are going to talk about ICE and immigration as we promised. But first, I've got another story that has broken recently over the last several days and has escalated as recently as yesterday, having to do with another breakup in this administration. Now, don't worry, this is not something that you would consider tabloid fodder. In fact, this one actually has global implications. I want to say hello to Better Together from Tennessee. And before I dive into this story, we're already at over 35,000 likes. That's amazing, everyone. What a welcome back. That's awesome. We are going to talk about I want to say hi to Kelly and others on YouTube and on TikTok and on Substack and all the other channels that we're broadcasting from. If you miss part of this programming or you want to grab a clip from it, then it will appear on our YouTube channel at Political Fixer. You can grab what you want, meme it, clip it, whatever you would like. Listen to it at double speed while you're working out. I see I love chocolate. I see you on there as well. Thank you so much for the gifts. Really appreciate it. All right. Before I dive in, let me grab some water. I'm on day 4 of this cold, hopefully done. Luckily, it's just sinuses, but my goodness, this is one thing about going out into the world that I have forgotten about, which is catching everyone's germs. Okay, let's talk about the dark forces that are currently splintering. Again, we started at the top of this hour talking about how there are signs of weakness in this administration. So many, if we start to look. Why is it important to talk about this? Because Sometimes it's really easy when we're reading all of these negative news stories to feel helpless, to feel like they have all of the power, we have none, and we're never going to claw our way out of this. But the more we start to look at it, the more that, yes, arguably, there are some really bad things that are happening right now, of course. But there's also signs that just 6 months in, and he's already starting to see his grasp on power starting to loosen. So some of that is his own following starting to actively question him, even though he said, "Look away, nothing to see here." But another is his relationships are starting to fracture. We're starting to see that. We saw that with the breakup with Musk, that's on again, off again. This one, I would argue, has broader implications for us and definitely broader implications around the world. I believe that 47 and Putin are also ending their bromance. And I want to lay out my case for you, tell you what's happening and why you should care. Nothing to see here, just trying to preserve democracy and prevent a big bully from taking over and doing awful things to a smaller democratic country. Okay. We're going to do a really quick segment on this because we've got so much more to cover with immigration, and I promised you some twists and turns. But I do think this story is important. I'm going to outline it at a really high level. All right. Many of you might remember a few months ago, which feels like years ago, when Ukrainian President Zelensky went into the Oval Office and basically JD Vance and 47 tried to like Biff and Sully him and just completely bully him. Why aren't you wearing a suit? You never said thank you, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now apparently the tone has completely shifted. Before, the Oval Office was allegedly withholding weapons that were committed to Ukraine, and they denied that, but we got confirmation that weapons deliveries and all these things were being slowed down. We know for a fact that 47 was doing everything he could to try to elevate the status of Russia and Putin and basically degrade Ukraine and get them to agree to awful terms to a ceasefire. But recently, it came into light that 47 himself brokered a deal to authorize the shipment of weapons to Ukraine via our NATO allies. This is a huge reversal. All right. Now, NATO can do a lot on their own, but he had a hand in it. How many weapons are we talking? A significant amount. There's one particular weapon that I was reading about. It's called a Patriot missile battery. I'm not a big weapons person. I'm Texan. I like certain things, but I don't understand military weapons. Okay. Apparently, this helps Ukraine shoot down incoming missiles and drones. And 47 asked for 17 of these very specific weapons to be sent to Ukraine. And that might not sound like a lot, but they've only had two this entire time. So this is a huge request. And that's just one example of the large amount of weapons that he said, get them to Ukraine. And then he went and said, hey, Russia, if this war isn't over within 50 days, then I am going to apply a tariff of 100% and I'm going to cripple your economy. He has said things such as saying that he doesn't think Putin wants the war to end. Yes, we were all aware of that, but thank you for playing. And at one point, he wrote on social media, Vladimir, stop. Okay, so these are things that we have externally. Plus, if you look, there's an Atlantic piece which goes into a lot of detail with 6 sources within the administration talking about 47's frustration with Putin, his complete reversal. And in fact, it came out that 47 asked Zelensky on a call right after July 4th, could he possibly hit Putin harder? Could he strike Russia more? And he said, if we provide you with long range weapons, can you hit as far as Moscow? So he's mad. He's, I want to blow up something that's pretty and valuable to you, angry right now with Putin. Why? What happened? Why are we experiencing this breakup? And why should all of us care? Okay. 47 is allegedly very upset with Putin because candidly, he was humiliated by him. He believed that he could just come in and use his relationship with him and end this thing, according to him, in 24 hours. Not only did the ceasefire not happen, but what would happen is 47 would be on the phone with Putin. They'd have some sort of agreement. And then as soon as he would hang up the phone, Putin would be like, haha, and blow something else up in Ukraine. And it made him look foolish. Then, on top of that, he just kept ignoring him and stringing him along. According to 47's own words, he said he was tapping him along by releasing some of the biggest bombing so far in the war. So basically, he felt stupid. He felt used for the first time in this relationship, which is remarkable. But again, we don't always get to choose the domino that topples. So now he's mad and he wants to help Ukraine. And not only is he wanting to help them, he's asking them, can you please bomb Moscow? He wants to hurt Putin. Okay, so what are the takeaways here? Is he finally seeing the light and a supporter of democracy? No. Not at all. He's not supporting Ukraine for the right reasons, but we need Ukraine to win this. We need for democracy to stand and morally for the bully not to win. The atrocities that Russia has committed are just absolutely heinous. We need for this to go a certain way. All of us. Could 47 change his mind? Yes, absolutely. As fast as he drinks a Diet Coke, that man could have a completely different philosophy. But every moment that he is not actively working against Ukraine buys them more time to be successful. And this is a critical time for Ukraine because right now the ground is starting to get warmer. They're able to start moving things. And this is when they can start making advancements. And let's be very clear, Putin in the list of bad guys is a really bad guy who hates our country and always has. So the longer these guys are fighting, the better it is for us. We want him as far away from our government, our administration, and the Oval Office as humanly possible. So the longer they're fighting, for whatever reason, we don't care, it's better for us. So now I want to ask all of you. You don't have to be military experts. You don't even have to really follow what's happening in Ukraine. But my question to you is, do you think that this rift between 47 and Putin is real? Do you think they're really upset with each other? And if so, will it last? And then my follow-up question for you is, what do you think it would take for Putin to finally give up? For him to finally have a ceasefire to end the war and stop picking on Ukraine? That's my questions for you. Who wants to dive in? All right. Let me take a look here. We are already, wow, over almost 49,000 likes. I'm going to give you guys a minute. We have a new member of our Political Fixer family, Jigsaw. Welcome. I also want to say again hi to Wendy R. Puck. Hello to Debbie, to Novia. I'm Harley's girl. Wendy R. You guys sent some lovely gifts and roses. Thank you so much. Also, I want to thank Professor Liberty Esquire. And is it Kaon Russick? I want to thank you for sharing this live with other people and say hi to Marlene as well. Welcome to so many of you after being back from summer hiatus. And Professor Liberty Esquire says, I don't think anything short of moving on will change Putin's mind. So I don't think anything would stop him, according to Spiritually Sexy. Love that handle, by the way, spiritually. Emperor Tang can't handle the fact that he can't handle Putin. Really funny, Marlene. Flower Bell says Putin will never give up. Joe Eclectus says, I think 47 gets upset over every little thing and changes who he bullies quickly. Verna disagrees and says, nope, it's all an act. We're going to follow it. Again, I don't pretend to be an expert on foreign affairs, but I did find it interesting that he helped to broker a deal for weapons for Ukraine. Um, so user 3356 says Putin says he's accelerating the taking of land within 60 days. That was 11 days ago, 50 days all set. I don't know, user. Let's see what happens first. Putin accelerating his taking of land or all of the 90 trade deals that we're getting, right? M says, I think it's a distraction. So we're going to keep an eye on this because, again, the more that they're fighting with each other, the better it is for all of us. Now, I actually don't think 47 is a great chess player here. I think he says whatever he's thinking. He he's been cursing whenever anybody asks him about Putin and the ceasefire. I think he is genuinely frustrated. How long that rift will take, how much he's willing to help Ukraine, who is to say? But the more things aren't going his way, the better it is for all of us, right? Diane brings up a really great point. Diane Zoe, I think 47 is embarrassed. I think that is a great point. But she goes on to say that Putin could play him again with flattery. Such a really good point. Joe Eclectic says, definitely not an art of the deal guy. Gigi, oh, this is such a good point. 47 is desperate to get a Nobel Peace Prize. You're right. And this interferes with that. That's such a good point. He wanted the big moment. Look at what I did. Oh, user agrees with you, right? Um, Tam Tam is saying that 47 hates looking stupid, and that's what's causing things to get messy. I completely agree. These are such good points. I'm glad we raised it for conversation. I know that there's a lot going on, and sometimes it's hard to pick which things to focus on, but I think it's important to kind of take a closer look at some of the stuff that the media is covering, look at what they're not covering, take a look at what's happening on the global stage. But for the top story of this show, we have to talk about immigration and what's happening with ICE. You guys, I was on holiday. I asked you very nicely to please fix this situation before I got back, and it's not fixed yet. I feel like you didn't do your homework. Just kidding. Okay, you have to laugh to keep from crying. Let's take a moment. Let's talk about some very tough stuff here. We're going to talk about the immigration situation. It has taken a turn for the worse, but I've got a twist in this story that honestly I did not see coming. All right. In just the past few weeks, let's just do a top level. What is happening with this whole situation? Because it escalated very rapidly. It feels like only yesterday when the National Guard was being deployed to Los Angeles. By the by, they have been since quietly pulled back from that situation. Another sign of weakness. Don't get me wrong. I'm thrilled. I'm so happy that LA is starting to get some breathing room. It's not over. They're still wreaking havoc in those neighborhoods and in communities. But the fact that he's having to quietly retreat rather than double down and send in more people to cover more of the LA area is a good sign. That means they're not getting what they want from that area. However, in the Everglades, just a few hours south from where I live in Florida, then there was an inhumane camp that was built. Whatever you would like to call it, I am not going to refer to it by that ridiculous name. What we do know is that legislators were finally let in over the weekend to see the conditions, and even with a planned visit and even with a monitored tour, what they witnessed was grotesque, it was inhumane, and it was not something that even convicted felons of heinous crimes should experience under not just the Constitution, but under the ethics of this nation. But it somehow gets even worse because, according to a bombshell report by the Miami Herald, which I know we knock the press, but let me just tell you, some of the best reporting is happening still from some of our newspapers. The Mississippi Free Press, there's been some great Austin newspapers, and the Miami Herald has been doing a bang up job. There are so many local papers that have just consistently just performed magic during a really important time. So, Miami Herald revealed that more than 250 people that are being detained in this camp, whatever you would like to call it, in the Everglades. They have no criminal convictions. They have no pending charges. At most, they have immigration violations. And to be clear, an immigration violation is civil, it is not criminal. It is the equivalent of a speeding ticket. I'm not saying ignore any law. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying for perspective, you have like something horrible where someone gets hurt, bank robbery, forging checks, and then way down here, civil, separate column, you have immigration violations. And these horrible conditions, you have people there for at most civil violations of immigration, over 250 people. So that's just one horrible thing that's happening. The raids have increased and gotten more violent. Just these past few days with the disappearances, the injuries. I'm going to list one that happened in California. George Ratez, a disabled veteran and a U.S. citizen. Again, not that it should matter. No one deserves to be treated like this, but a veteran who is disabled, who served our country, who is a citizen. He was a security guard and he was detained by ICE during a raid, and they smashed his car window, pepper sprayed him, and detained him for days. His family could not find him. He was held without a phone call, without access to an attorney, and without any medical care for the chemical agents that they used against him. Now, the positive light, though there are hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of stories just like this, is that he has since been released. But it is not the case for Jaime Alanis. He fell 30 feet from the roof of a greenhouse during that farm raid, and he later passed away from those injuries. He was 57 years old. He was doing his job on a farm, and he died because of the ICE raid. All right, it's getting dark. Thousands of people being disappeared, not being given due process, their lives being irrevocably changed. And every day in federal courts, you have attorney after attorney after attorney arguing on behalf of this administration that not only is what they're doing legal, according to them, but they're going to double down and start shipping people to the Sudan and other places. In addition to that, we're going to go dark before we come back out of this, so bear with me. They received basically unlimited funding in this last bill. Everybody was so caught up in Medicaid and the harm that this will do to SNAP funding and to rural hospitals, and with good reason. There were so many awful things in this bill, but I was paying attention to this one because, to give you perspective of this budget, this funding is $75 billion, 45 billion for 80,000 more beds and detention, and 30 billion towards hiring 10,000 new employees. This is more than the annual budget of the FBI. It is bigger than the budget of the DEA. It is bigger than our entire Bureau of Prisons. And keep in mind, we have one of the largest incarceration rates of any developed nation. It is bigger than the budget of the Marines. It is also bigger than the budget of the militaries of many countries, including Italy, which is at around 31 billion. They are the 16th highest military in the world, Italy. And this is more than twice that budget. They are higher than the Netherlands, which has a healthy military, Brazil, which has a huge military, and if you would like some dangerous context, Israel. This is more than 2 times the budget of all of Israel's military. If you would like size and scope as to how bad this could get, this funding for ICE is more than 2 times the military budget of Israel, the country, and it is being used against all of us. Okay, so I'm getting more clarification on the gentleman that passed away. Graciela is saying that ICE tased him and they fell because he tased him. I really thank you, Joe Eclectic is saying download Ice Block, which is an app. Thank you so much. You beat me to the punch, and I appreciate you for this, Joe Eclectic. Download Ice Block. It is a free app, and what it allows you to do is if you see someone who is ICE coming in, you can report it and it alerts people that ICE is in the area. Um, so Square Foot Gardening for You is saying that ICE agents are now saying they want to quit. If they don't, let's make them want to quit. We cannot let up on this issue. And Gigi, the reluctant diva, says, how do we make these private prison owners feel the rage? There's so much accountability that we need to talk about here. Some of that can happen at the state level. Not every state, obviously. I'm in Florida, and they were mugging and posing and buying merch with this awful situation. And you got to hope that the pages of history will not be kind to them. But As for what we can do, there are different. First of all, we can't look away. That's first and foremost. Secondly, there are different organizations and things that people who are on the boards of these private prisons, they are mixed into polite society, finding out where they are, making sure that, funds, like if you have pension funds or stocks or whatever, that they're not going into any of these prison stocks and bonds because they are private corporations, many of them. Those are some things that you can do. You can also start talking to people about what's happening because there's a big misunderstanding, right? A lot of people believe that he's only arresting criminals. In fact, some people are thinking that he's only arresting immigrants, which is still not okay. By the way, none of that's okay. But the fact that citizens are also being detained, I think those stories are important because it pierces that bubble that people who have no concept of math believe that there's just millions of criminals that are walking around in that situation. So I think having these conversations and showing these outrageous stories and the outrageous treatment, I think this is extremely important. Are you going to get the MAGA faithful? Probably no. Are you going to suddenly wake up the people that are posing in front of the sign of a camp that treats people like this? Absolutely not. But they're not your audience. Our audience, again, are people who want to look away and don't know. They still feel like both sides are the same. And so convincing them to pay attention and to get involved in some way is a huge step forward as we move forward. The second thing is that there are a number of people that were outright lied to. They were told that these are just criminals. And so showing this pattern of behavior, the abuses, all of those things, again, that will matter to some people. And I would just gently suggest that if you're having a conversation with a friend and those types of abuses, once they've had time to process and verify on their own that these things that you're saying are accurate, if they don't bother them, then maybe you should make new friends. Just me. Just want to put that out there as someone who has walked away from many relationships after realizing some things about some folks. I also want to say hi to we're gonna go into a twist and turn with this story. Um, Before we dive into the impact of this, and again, the big twist in this story. Oh, look at my hair bow. That's so cute, Wendy. Thank you. We are at over 63,000 likes, and I'm seeing some questions here. They're going by really fast. Let me try to scroll some back here. Um, so Renee is saying they're getting paid allegedly $6,000 a week plus huge bonuses and bounties for detainees. I'm seeing that there are large amounts and bounties. We've got to put pressure on the detention centers of those being detained. Absolutely. Square Foot Gardening is reminding everyone about ICE blog. Okay, here's this is the one I was trying to find. Collaborating Art Team says they heard that ICE removed Hispanic names from DNB data, making it look like they are illegal. So we have documentation of not just the Hispanic and Latino sounding names being removed and purged from things. We don't know the size and scale of it, but we have had confirmation. But there was also an African American gentleman who was born on a military base. He's a US citizen. His parents proudly served, and they removed his citizenship from the military records and just sent him to Jamaica. So this is not something small in scale. This is part of the plan, right? To have things happen so quickly that you can't possibly keep up with everything. But yes, removing data, changing records, destroying real IDs, moving people from place to place, denying them of counsel, never letting them reach out to their loved ones where they don't even know where they are. So many awful, ugly tricks. Um, I see a lot of questions here. Rosanna would like me to know that you're a Trump supporter. You know what? Bless your heart. If you can look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, hey, this is how human beings should be treated, then I'm glad you're nowhere near me or my child. So I hope you have nothing to do with any children, actually, because this is heinous. If you celebrate other people's pain, then I just find it weird that you would brag about that. Um, so, okay, here's the thing. We're gonna put this on a little bit of a lighter note. Let me tell you, this is an awful thing. And it's awful from an ethics perspective, a moral perspective. It is a fracture of our democracy, our constitution, our judicial process. It is a red line. It is a problem. In addition to that, it's not exactly working. All right. And what I mean by that is it's causing trauma, it's ruining people's lives, it's having a devastating impact on communities and families and schools and economies and all kinds of things. All of these negative things are happening. And yet, with unlimited money and the guns and the SUVs and the dramatic footage and the new concentration camps and all these things, that's still not working. His numbers on this issue have completely tanked. People do not believe he's handling it well. They are now more firmly on the side of, hey, maybe a nation of immigrants, immigration's not so bad. All of whatever they meant to do besides traumatize people, it's not working. It is not working. We started the hour talking about the Epstein list, and here's how this all ties together. And for those of you just joining us, welcome to the Political Fixer Live. You can catch the whole show on YouTube at Political Fixer. But what does the Epstein list have in common with what's happening with Putin, with this immigration nightmare? It's that no matter how strong he tries to make himself appear, he's just getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And at the end of the day, he's getting caught in lie after lie after lie. And this lie was that he was going after criminals. Now, here's the thing. I have been working in justice and in criminal legislation for years and years. I'm not an attorney, but I do know that bad people exist. And so, in the spirit of trying to move things forward, I would like for them to stop just picking on the guy that has a taco truck or is trying to take his kindergartner to school or is trying to get chemo treatment at a hospital. Maybe stop picking on those guys. And I'll give you a really bad immigrant criminal right now. If anyone would like to share this information with the administration, all of this that I'm about to share with you is true. Here's the thing. They said they were going after criminals, but starting in May, when they really stepped things up, people with criminal convictions are only 30% of the people being detained. So, put another way, more than 2 out of 3 people being detained by these monsters do not have criminal convictions. Complete lie. Specifically, going back to LA and New York, where they were trying to flex their muscle, 60% of the people arrested by ICE in June had no criminal convictions and not even any pending charges. These are just regular people who bear certain physical characteristics and are getting rounded up. And we all know what those are. So they're not going after criminals. Why? Why are they not going after criminals? Why go into hospitals and farms and kindergarten graduations? Because it's easy. Because it's easy. Catching criminals is hard work. There were entire reality series devoted to trying to catch criminals. You maybe got one at the end of an hour, right? It is difficult to catch criminals. You can't make your quotas if you're only going after criminals. So I'm going to give them one that makes it really easy. And they live right down the road from that Everglades concentration camp. So this is going to be super easy. Everyone can help with this. Send any of this information either to a Republican congressman, to the Department of Homeland Security, to ICE, to the Trump administration, whoever you would like. Here's the situation. In the 1980s, for those of you unfamiliar with Florida lore, millions of dollars of cocaine was being trafficked through Miami. Some of you might remember the movies. Most of what you saw in the movies about that time in Miami was true. It was the cocaine capital of this part of the globe. All right. And in particular, there was one particular family of drug traffickers that they were using some pretty creative methods to cover up their drug smuggling. They had an exotic animal ring, and that was their front business to hide all of the cash from the drug smuggling. So I want you to think Scarface meets Tiger King. All right. And again, all of this is a 100% true story that I could not make up if I wanted to. So they had a really clever way of moving the drugs from point A to point B. They were hiding the cocaine in cartons of cigarettes. Now, in 19 important thing here, before the product was shipped, it would come in, they would get it packaged up and put it in the cigarettes, and then they would ship it out. And in between all of this, while it was getting ready to be shipped out, it was hidden in the floors and walls of a home in Miami in a neighborhood called West Kendall. Now, in 1987, federal agents launched an operation called Operation Cobra. Cannot make this stuff up. It's so cheesy. Anyway, this sting operation was successful, and agents raided that home in West Kendall in the Miami area, and they found all of the cocaine in the floorboards and in the walls, and they made several arrests. But the owner of that home was one of the leaders of this drug smuggling cartel, and he got off really light. While some people that were arrested had 100-year prison sentences, this guy barely served a third of his prison sentence. He was sentenced to 35 years. He got out in less than 12. He was also supposed to give back the drug money, $15 million that he was supposed to give back to the government that he made from his drug smuggling that just disappeared and never found its way. So they never recovered this. This guy is currently living out his days in Miami as a real estate agent. He's pretty easy to find. This is a guy who smuggled drugs. His front business was just as gross, which is exploiting wild animals. And if any of you saw Tiger King, then you would know just how disturbing that is. And yet, he's roaming free. This guy with several criminal charges, background in drugs, dangerous guy in Miami. And I'm going to tell the government how to find him. All you have to do is call his wife. That's right. His name is Orlando Cecilia, and his wife's name is Barbara. But you might know her better from her maiden name. Her maiden name is not Barbara Cecilia, it's Barbara Rubio, because this drug kingpin who smuggled millions and millions of dollars of cocaine into Miami, he's Marco Rubio's brother-in-law. Yet, he has a real estate license. He's in Miami. He's doing just fine. Meanwhile, people who are trying to serve us food and take care of their children and receive medical care, yeah. So, spiritually sexy is saying he already served. What could they do? Well, here's the thing, they're saying they want anyone with a criminal conviction, even if they served. And right now, they're currently deporting people who had a marijuana possession that they didn't even receive a prison sentence. They've already done whatever fine they were supposed to do. And yet, because they have a criminal background, they're deporting them anyway. They're not trying to catch people who have prison sentences. They're not trying to try people for new crimes. If you have any criminal background at all, they're using that as a grounds to deport you. Not even necessarily to where you came from. It could be a third country like El Salvador or Ecuador or the Sudan, right? So in addition to that, they went one step further this week, and they had the audacity to stand in front of God and everyone and say that it's not just if you have criminal convictions. They're now going to start one step further, and people who associate with criminals are also considered criminals. They're going to deport them too. You stand serving a man who has 47 felony convictions and without any shame say that people who associate themselves with criminals are to blame. But we're just going to set that aside for a second. I would like to see Marco Rubio taken out of this country if that is the standard, because he's an immigrant who not only associates readily with this convicted drug kingpin. If you want to know how a guy who served 12 years in prison, convicted for 35, $15 million of funds that are owed to the government, how did he get a real estate license? Because when Marco Rubio was a state senator, he personally wrote the letter of recommendation to the state real estate board and asked them to give it to him. He is associated with known criminals. This was never about the law. This was never about getting the worst of the worst out of our country. This is about picking on people who are different than us, just like it's always been. Just like it's always been. Yeah. Um, so If you want to talk to people about this, there's a little ace in the hole for you. If you want to tell them as they're looking at this with a straight face, if they want to tell you that this is about trying to catch criminals and those who associate with criminals, I'm going to give you that name again. It's Orlando Cecilia, and he's currently married to Barbara Rubio, practicing real estate in Miami. So, this is where we're at, kids. We know what's happening. We see through them. And now what are we looking for? A few things. Let's wrap up together, shall we? Right now, we've got over 80,000 likes. You guys have made this such a welcome back after a couple of weeks hiatus, and I want to thank you for that. Let's end on a positive note, shall we? First of all, it doesn't matter how much money, how much power, how much bluster, how many weapons, how many masks, or anything you give these people, they are still weak. And we are seeing all of these awful stories, but we're also seeing story after story of people standing up for their neighbors. I saw one of a baseball coach who interfered with ICE trying to terrorize the children on his little league team. We are seeing hundreds of people stand up when they hear rumors of a farm raid. There are so many people that are rising up, not just with the immigration issue, but so many others. And it's working. Doesn't get reported on as much, but it's working. So the first assignment I have for you is please do not lose hope because it's everywhere. It hurts what's happening right now, but we are seeing daylight. The second thing is I want you to start thinking about things that you can get involved with either locally or a campaign. Some of you wrote to me and said, I don't believe that midterms are going to happen. And that is completely fair. I hope that you're wrong, but we have to work as if they are happening, right? And the more he loses the faith of his supporters, the more he gets upset, like he makes people upset who follow unlawful orders by him, the more he tanks in approval ratings. All of that makes it harder for him to do something even crazier in the future. That's why all of this is connected and all of it matters. So if you want to get involved in an election at any level, now would be the time because we got to get to work right away. But if that's not for you, find an organization that is helping to work right now with some of the impact. Whatever your belief system is, whatever issue impacts you or pulls at your heartstrings. Maybe you want to be involved in the front lines in some of this and you have some volunteer work, even filing things for different law offices or nonprofits. Right now we're hearing about different pets that are getting left behind because of these immigration raids. A lot of them need foster homes. Some of them unfortunately now need forever homes. There's so many things. The food budget is being cut by for the schools so you could volunteer for local food and lunch outreach programs. As summer starts to wind down and school comes back, kids are going to need more help with supplies because that funding got cut. There's hundreds of opportunities to get involved and start doing something constructive with this emotion that we all have, because the more we're doing good, the harder it is for the evil to win. That's your second assignment. Get involved in something that makes you feel positive, where you feel like you're making a difference because you are. The third assignment that I have for you, oh, that's right, I came back with so much because you guys made the mistake of letting me get some rest, is to take care of yourselves. We are only 6 months into what we think might be a 4-year term, maybe depending on how you squint and look sideways. Good Lord, it feels like so much longer, right? I think that I have aged 3 years in the last 6 months. What are you doing to take care of yourselves? How are you rearranging your life to fit in more self care? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Because even people who are well intentioned can sometimes be a little bit Eeyore-ish and rain on our cloud, rain on our picnics when they don't intend to. It's just their way of coping. What are you doing to take care of yourselves? Right. And tiny little thing, I hope that you mark your calendars for next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, because we'll be right here for another Political Fixer Live. So next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Now, before I log off, I want to hear from you. We're at 90,000 likes. That's amazing. I want to read some of these things that you guys are doing for yourselves, right? Oh, Nev, thank you so much. She's saying I was missed, Shawna and team. You were as well. Catherine, thanks for reminding us of all the ways we can do something. Um, so I'm getting some yays, a lot of good stuff here. Joe Eclectic is saying resting, stretching, and getting normal exercise, eating healthier if you're able. Love all of that. I'm trying. I alternate between resting, exercising, and then eating a lot of things that are not healthy for me to cope. That's just my thing. Sashmeister says therapy, lots of therapy. Love that for you. I'm so glad you found someone that you trust enough to guide you through this crazy, crazy time. Midlife Cringe says, I struggle with people who are, quote, not paying attention. Great point. I do too. I think that part of that is possibly a coping mechanism because who wants to read sad things all the time? But then part of it's privilege, right? Because how great that you get to just tune everything out with all these people hurting. It must not impact you. If you're trying to reach someone like that, then maybe what the thing is in a non-confrontational way to say, "Hey, listen, what issue matters to you? Because I'm really passionate about what I'm involved in right now, and I would like to get you involved. I get not all of our views are the same, but what are you into? Because I'd like to come back with some reasons and ways that you can get involved." If you have someone that you care about in your life, baby step them in. If that doesn't work, move on and just maybe compartmentalize your time. There are people that you socialize with this on this level, and then there are other times that you spend, fighting in the resistance. But that's a great point, midlife cringe. I struggle with that as well. Um, I see other people affirming that. Leaving MAGA, is that a handle? Leavingmaga.org has good information for dealing with friends and family. Thank you, Square Foot Gardening, for you. I'm going to read that domain again because I butchered it the first time. Leavingmaga.org. Good information for dealing with MAGA friends and family. Um, Mark Perry says, I read a lot and learn more. I'd be curious, Mark, if you're reading like news and nonfiction or if you're breaking it up with like fantasy or like crime dramas or something, because for me, I can only read like so much and then I need an escape. I just started binging a lot of television right now. Let's see. Okay, so and apparently the trolls are back out, so that's fun. All right, I love seeing all of the coping mechanisms that you're doing. I want to read a couple more things of comments and thank you to Sarah and J Robot and Eddie, the rest of the Political Fixer team for helping to produce this show tonight. We had covered a lot of ground, but I don't want to miss these really great comments. Citizen Carmen said, "I support a national work strike. Has to be all of us. This will be over in a week." So people are starting to organize this, and I am starting to see the United Farm Workers discuss. I'm not speaking for them, but I'm starting to see specifically the ideas of a farm worker strike. Now, I want to be really clear. There are a lot of stereotypes that it's easy to fall into with these immigration conversations. We're seeing footage of farm workers, taco truck owners, things like that. But immigrants are so much more. They're 25% of our STEM professionals across the United States. But what we're seeing is they're picking on the most vulnerable. So I want to be really quick to not fall into the cliche. However, they are picking on the farmers and the restaurant workers for a reason. They tend to not have a lot of money for their own counsel, for example. They tend to be very easy to bully. So you're starting to see discussion about strikes being organized, particularly in the farming community. Um, Joe Eclectic mentioned Working Families Party and Indivisible are starting to offer more action steps on how to get involved. Absolutely. For some people, they have great county and local parties. I'm still discovering some of the great organizations across the country, and we're going to be partnering with more of them. Robin, alluding to an earlier story, says about our friendly brother-in-law drug trafficker, that it's the rules apply to thee, but not for me. And Guava Girl wants me to point out that SCOTUS gave permission for law enforcement and ICE to enter without probable cause. Again, laws don't matter. I'm not encouraging any of you to break any of said laws, but for certain people, they don't matter. They don't work to protect the vulnerable right now, and they certainly don't prosecute those who are powerful yet committed heinous crimes. And I guess that's another theme of tonight's show. But again, to end on a positive note, most powerful forces in the world, and yet they're not even slowing us down. I hope that you take a moment and ask yourself if this was time well spent for you, if this was a good usage of time, if you feel better at the end of this hour than you did at the beginning of the hour. And if we can do that together with just a little bit of cyberspace and time, then just think what we can do as we continue to grow closer as a community, get organized, and keep sharing information and positivity and encouragement with each other. Um, I see so many positive things, and I can't wait to continue the conversation. We have a lot of tools that we're going to be rolling out in cooperation with vote.org, Indivisible, and other organizations. And if you would like us to come to an organization near you, please go to politicalfixer.com. We would love to hear from you. We're going to be rolling out a lot more things in the months and weeks ahead. But in the meantime, I'm happy to be still and sitting here with all of you and back in this chair covering things, raising some good trouble, and hopefully bringing just a little bit of a breath and perspective and hope to your evenings. Until next time, wow, 102,000 likes. Thanks for the welcome back, everyone. On behalf of myself and my political fixer team, and to my family, who is very grateful that you allowed us to go on this holiday and take a break away from the calamity that was happening in the United States while we were abroad. I want to thank you very sincerely for being here. Thank you and be kind to yourselves and to each other. I will see you on all of the socials over the next several days with new content, and I'll see you right back here next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you. Hey, I'm so glad you got the book. Yay.